Well, everybody, welcome back to the Raise Your Bars podcast. I'm Al Ruttan, and I'm here with my good friend Chris Baker. And you know what our goal is? Our goal with this podcast is to help leaders build behaviors and actions that multiply results and drive success. Chris, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Alan. I've honestly, I've really been looking forward to this episode because we're tackling something that I think is the absolute bedrock of leadership.
Hmm.
We can talk strategy, vision, execution all day long, but without today's topic, honestly, none of it really works.
Yeah, that's so true. You're right, Chris. And today we're diving into self-awareness. This is really a foundational stepping stone in leadership. We're going to explore
Mhm.
how to understand your strengths and blind spots, develop some emotional intelligence, and using tools for self-reflection that can actually transform the way you lead.
Yeah, and here's the thing, Al. I've seen, I'm sure you have too, seen brilliant
Mhm.
leaders with incredible technical skills, but they fail because of a lack of self-awareness. And
Yeah,
I've
so
seen
true.
leaders with average abilities achieve remarkable things because they truly understood themselves. And that's how powerful this really is.
Yeah, that's so true. And let's start with the basics. What do we actually mean when we're talking about self-awareness in leadership? Chris, how would you define that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think of self awareness as having, let's say, an accurate understanding of who you are.
Hmm.
Right, it's knowing your values, it's knowing your strengths, it's knowing your weaknesses, and how your behavior impacts other people. Seeing
Yeah.
yourself clearly, right, not through rose tinted glasses or through an overly critical lens in the other way.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so good. I love that. And I'd add that self-awareness sort of has these two dimensions, right? The internal self-awareness, which is understanding, our own emotions, our feelings,
Mm.
our values, and our aspirations. And then there's that external self-awareness, which is understanding how others are perceiving our actions, right? And both are really critical.
They are, and it's such an important distinction, Al. Um, I've worked with leaders who were very introspective, right, but had no idea how they came across to their teams. Honestly, I was probably like that myself
Yeah,
at one
me too.
point.
Yeah.
And I've worked with leaders who were laser focused on their image, but they were completely disconnected from their own values.
Oh, and that really can do so much damage to an organization if you're
For sure.
disconnected with that, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about strengths. One of the first steps in building self-awareness is really understanding what you're naturally good at. And I don't
Mm.
just mean your technical skills and abilities. I mean your natural talents, your thinking patterns, the things that energize you.
Yeah, and this is where tools like disc assessments that we both use
Hmm.
in our work is that they become so valuable. I tell you, when I first took a disc assessment in it was 2018, right?
Mm.
It was like someone handed me a user manual for myself. I finally understood why I approached problems the way I did and why I sometimes clashed with certain personality types. It was one of those things, honestly, that I was what I was. 52 then, right? It was
Mm.
one of those things I wish I'd had like
Oh my
30
goodness.
years
Yes,
previously.
yes, so
Yeah.
true. And I'll tell you, folks, so like Chris and I spent a lot of years now working with DISC and doing, well, thousands of DISC assessments on people,
Mm.
literally thousands through our business. And it's funny that Chris is a DC, so he's that direct, cautious type, very task oriented, and I'm an IS, which is that inspirational, supportive type, very people oriented. So we're completely opposite, but we make great business partners because Chris's
Yeah.
task keeps me on task at times, and my I maybe goes out there too wacky on the dreaming end of things, and Chris reels me back in. So I'd say together, Chris and I are the perfect person.
Right.
Together, we do complement each other well because of our disc styles.
Yeah.
I believe, and that's I've something I value about you so much.
Yeah.
Now, again, disc is something that, like I said, we've used extensively with our clients, and these aha moments they have as we're taking them through them is really incredible. These
Mm.
leaders suddenly understand why they communicate the way they do, and why certain tasks drain them, and why they naturally excel in other areas. And this is really powerful self knowledge.
It is. And here's where it gets really interesting, Al. The flip side of every strength is a potential weakness. Your
Hmm.
greatest asset can become your biggest liability if you're not aware of it.
Yeah. Can you give us an example of that, maybe, Chris?
Sure. I mean, let's say that that someone is naturally decisive, right? That's a
Hmm.
tremendous strength in leadership. But if you're not aware of it, that decisiveness can turn into bulldozing over your team, not
Hmm.
listening to input, making
Hmm.
snap judgments without enough information. So that strength can become a blind spot.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And I've seen that play out so many times, right? And the
Mhm.
leader who's great at building relationships might avoid difficult conversations. The detail-oriented leader might get lost in the weeds and miss the big picture. Every strength has this shadow side.
Exactly. And that's why we call them blind spots, right? It's
Exactly. Yeah.
the definition of that is that we can't see them ourselves.
Hmm.
Right? We need feedback. We need honest input from others, and we need the humility to accept that we don't have a complete picture of ourselves.
Yeah, that's so true. And John Maxwell actually says that a leader who lacks self-awareness will always be limited. That's a pretty bold statement. Always be limited.
Mm,
And you can't grow beyond what you're willing to see about yourself. And I found that most successful leaders I work with are the ones who actively seek out their blind spots.
yeah, it's the just on that, Alice. You can't grow beyond what you're unwilling to see about
Mm.
yourself, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that's the point. Is some of us might say, "Yeah, I'm willing to see this," but I'm unwilling to see that, right?
Right.
I don't want to be seen as as being the decision maker, or I don't want to be seen as being the task oriented and not the people oriented. But you've got to
Right.
understand that, right, in order to use that as a strength and grow in areas that you may not realize that you needed to grow in. So you got to be willing, right? If you're unwilling to see it, you're never going to change.
And I think that's the thing. Like, I like using the word blind spot versus weakness, but I think it's a blind spot until
Correct.
you're aware of it. If you don't act on that awareness, that unwillingness comes into play to act on that new awareness, then it becomes a weakness and it could be your
Yeah,
downfall.
absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, look at cars now. Virtually every car has got a blind spot indicator, right? That
Yeah.
tells us now when something is in our blind spot,
Yeah. Because there
right?
were a
We
lot of
didn't used to.
accidents because people were not aware of what was in their blind spot.
Exactly. All right. And so that's all we're looking to do is let's
Right.
create our own blind spot indicators, right?
Hmm.
Which is basically feedback from other people and us being
Absolutely.
humble enough to accept that that other people can see things that we can't.
Yeah.
All right.
So true.
So let's shift a little bit. Let's shift to emotional intelligence, Al, because I think this is where self-awareness really comes to life in leadership, right? So let me ask you a question. How do you see EQ connecting to what we've been discussing so far?
Well, I think it's a key indicator. And I mean, if you have the I mean, both Chris and I do DISC and emotional intelligence. So if you haven't done these assessments on yourself, reach out to us. We could definitely get you the link to complete these assessments and even do a debrief with you. There is a fee. It's not free, but it's the information you gain from this will far outweigh the investment you make into this. Now, emotional intelligence is really it's the practical application of self-awareness. It's not just knowing your emotions, it's being able to manage them effectively and understand the emotions of others. Daniel Goleman's research shows that EQ is often more important than IQ for leadership success. Did you
Oh,
hear that?
yeah.
EQ is often more important than IQ for leadership success.
100%. Yeah. And I think a lot of people misunderstand what emotional intelligence actually looks like, right? It's not
Mhm.
about being soft or
No,
avoiding conflict. Some of the most emotionally intelligent leaders that I know are incredibly direct, but they're direct with awareness and empathy.
exactly. Now, let me give a practical example. Imagine you're in a meeting and someone challenges your idea in a way that feels disrespectful. A leader without emotional intelligence might react defensively, get angry, or shut down. A leader with high EQ pauses. They recognize their emotional reaction and choose how to respond.
Yeah, and that pause is everything, right?
Powerful.
Um, I use this in my training at Disney, and it's the gap between stimulus and response.
Hmm.
And Viktor Frankl talked about this. In that gap lies our freedom to choose our response. Right,
Hmm.
two key words there: freedom and choose. Right,
Choose.
and in
Yes.
our response lies our growth and happiness. Right, so let me say that again. That quote by Viktor Frankl: in that gap, I call it the gap between stimulus and response. Right, in that gap lies our freedom to choose our response, and in our response lies our growth and happiness.
Happiness.
Right, and self-aware leaders actually expand that gap.
That's so good. And here's something really interesting. So emotional intelligence isn't just about managing the negative emotions. It's also about understanding what motivates you, what
Mm,
brings you energy, what depletes you. And when you know these things, you can lead from a place of strength.
for sure. Um, I want to talk about empathy for a moment, Al, because
Yeah, good
it's
idea.
a crucial component of
Hmm.
EQ, and EQ is emotional intelligence. If people are wondering that, and empathy is something that sometimes gets overlooked.
Hmm.
Empathy isn't just feeling what others feel; it's understanding their perspective, even when you disagree with it.
Yeah, that's so true. And in leadership, empathy allows you to connect with your team on that deeper level. And when people feel understood, they trust you more. They're more
Mm,
engaged. They're more willing to go that extra mile. But you can't truly empathize with others until you understand yourself.
no, so Al, expand on that connection a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. If you're not aware of your own biases, your own emotional triggers, your own assumptions, guess what? They're going to color how you perceive others. You
Yeah.
might interpret someone's quiet demeanor as disengaged when really they're an introvert and who processes things internally. And
Mhm.
self-awareness clears the lenses through which we see others.
Yeah. And I'm sure you have as well. I've definitely seen this play out
Hmm.
in team dynamics like many, many times. When
Hmm.
a leader develops greater self awareness, what happens is you get that ripple effect, right? It ripples out to the entire team. They create psychological safety because they're not projecting their own insecurities onto others.
Yeah, and in that safety allows for that honest feedback, that innovation, that healthy conflict, all of which are essential for high performing teams. It comes back to
Mm.
the leader's self awareness.
Yeah, so cool, so cool.
Yeah.
So let's get practical, right? We've talked about why self awareness matters and how it shows up in emotional intelligence, but how do leaders actually develop it? What tools and practices would you recommend?
Well, that's a great question, Chris. And the first tool I recommend is regular journaling. Right? I know
Mm,
you've journaled for a lot of years, and just that simple putting pen to paper and journaling, your day can be an amazing growth experience for you. I know some leaders roll their eyes at this, but there's really powerful research behind it. Writing forces you to articulate your thoughts and your emotions in ways that just thinking about them, it doesn't really do it.
yeah, I did journaling. I started it probably about 5 years ago, right? And
Hmm.
I did it for 2 years solid, every single day. It was part of my morning routine, and it was
Hmm.
it was transformative. Even just 10 minutes, either in the morning or at the end of the day, whatever it was, asking yourself simple questions like what went well, what didn't go well, how did I show up as a leader today?
Mm,
And if you the things things that I would look at, like what went well, why did it go well, and how can I replicate that? And if it
so
didn't go
good.
well, why not?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And these questions build awareness over time.
Yeah, absolutely true. Now, some other essential tools. I mean, we've talked about it already a little bit, but the DISC model of human behavior. And if you really want to understand yourself, how you're wired, are you more task, are you more people, are you more outgoing, are you more reserved, and how that impacts you and the people around you, DISC is a powerful tool. I mean, there's other resources out there like strength finders and stuff, but I would recommend the DISC model of human behavior. And then, of course, emotional intelligence assessments, EQI 2.0. Chris and I can both set you up with those types of assessments as well and debrief you on them. And these give you objective data about yourself that you might not necessarily see otherwise.
Yeah. And here's a key point, right? Don't just take the assessment and then file it away.
Mm-mm.
All right. Revisit it regularly. Share your results with your team. Use it as a conversation starter about how you can work better together.
That's so good. And that's so true, Chris. And here's the third one. And this one takes a little bit of courage, folks. And this is seeking feedback.
Mm,
Not just the formal annual review kind, but ongoing real time feedback. This takes a little bit of humility and vulnerability as a leader, but ask your team members, your peers, your mentors, how am I doing? And what could I do better? Two simple
yeah.
questions and receive that feedback with the intention for which they're giving it. Not as an attack, but just, hey, here's what I see. Here's something maybe you could do better. And take that feedback and take it to heart and do some self reflection on it.
Yeah, and one of my things with feedback as well, Al, is that we should be getting feedback and giving feedback
Mm-hmm.
on things that are going well too, right? The positive things. It
Absolutely.
shouldn't always be too often. It's just all about the things that we've done wrong or the things we need to work on.
Yeah, good point,
Whereas
Chris.
reinforcing the positive, right? So when we
Hmm.
think about bars, what are the positive behaviors and actions that people are doing? Because if you reinforce those, guess what? They're going to do even more, and that the other people will see that, and then it's going to replicate, right?
Yes.
But
Yeah.
you need to share all of the feedback, but definitely don't underestimate or undervalue the reinforcing the positive. And
100%.
just another point on that, before we move on, there is that you mentioned it being real time, right? And I'll use in classes one of my sort of dad joke puns, if you like, is that feedback is a gift, and therefore it should be given in the present. All
That's
right.
good. I like
Don't
that.
don't wait. Don't wait. And
Yeah.
so, we definitely recommend making feedback specific, right? Instead of asking for general feedback, ask about maybe a particular meeting or a decision that was made or a project
Hmm.
that you're working on, right? The more specific you are, the more useful the feedback will be.
Yeah. And here's the fourth thing is working with a coach or a mentor. Having
Mm,
someone outside your situation who can hold up a mirror and ask you challenging questions. And this is invaluable. Now, a good
yeah.
coach sees things you can't see and helps you connect the dots. And again, not to, this isn't a promote Al and Chris podcast, although it is by way, but both Chris and I are certified coaches and we can help you in this area. And honestly, if we have a meeting together to discover a discovery call to see if we're a good fit and we're not, then maybe Chris can help you. And if you're not a good fit with him, then maybe I can help you. And if not, we can point you in the direction of somebody who can.
Yeah.
But coaching is a powerful tool.
For sure. And the last thing, I mean, it shouldn't be the last thing, but it's last in this list, right?
Yeah.
Is adding mindfulness and meditation. Even just a few minutes of quiet reflection each day will increase your ability to observe your own thoughts and your emotions without getting caught up in them.
Mm-hmm. And
Right? It
folks,
doesn't
these,
have to be it doesn't have to be a structured meditation thing, right? Where
oh,
you're
no.
chanting things or you're listening to it. Just again, just take that time, a
Yeah.
few minutes where you've not got your cell phone, right? You've not got the
Mm-hmm.
TV on, you've not got any noise. It's just you and whether you close your eyes or what it is, but just like let yourself go and just you can also think about what you're grateful for in that time,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
And that will be a huge help to you.
Yeah, well, just some of that deep breathing or up from your desk and take a walk around the building or something or take a walk on your
Mhm.
lunch break. All these things are
Yeah.
amazing tools to help you decompress and refocus and show up as the best version of yourself. Now,
Yeah.
all of these tools we talked about today, they aren't one-time activities. Self-awareness is really it's a practice. It's something you develop over time through consistent effort and intention.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what we're looking at doing is creating good habits, right?
Exactly.
And good habits are created intentionally. I guarantee that any of the habits you've got that you haven't intentionally created are probably bad habits, right? So,
Probably.
um,
Yeah.
Al, as we wrap up today, we always like to leave our listeners with a challenge, right? And so this week, that challenge is to choose just one of the tools that we've discussed today and commit to practicing it,
Mhm.
right? Maybe it's journal for 10 minutes each day, right? Maybe it's asking for specific feedback from one person or from a team, or taking time to really reflect on your disc results, or putting in that sort of mindfulness and meditation
Mhm.
practice each day.
So good. I love that. And remember, self-awareness isn't about it's not about achieving perfection, right? We're not
Mm-mm.
expecting everybody to be perfect here. but it's about progress. It's about knowing yourself well enough that you can lead others from this authentic place. And when you understand your strengths and your blind spots, and when you develop emotional intelligence, and when you practice self reflection, guess what? You become the kind of leader that people want to follow.
Yeah, and it 100% is not about perfection, because perfection
No,
doesn't exist. Because
exactly.
if it did, we couldn't continually improve, right? Because
Hmm.
perfection means it's as good as it gets.
Yeah,
And we are believers in continuous development, continuous
exactly.
improvement. So
Exactly.
strive for that excellence. And
Yeah.
remember that at the end of the day, you can't take people further than you've gone yourself. Leadership development starts with self development, and self development starts with self awareness.
Beautifully said, Chris. Hey, folks, I want to thank you all for joining us on the Raise Your Bars podcast today. Remember, your behaviors plus your actions multiplied by your results equals your level of success. So keep raising your bars, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Take care, everyone.